How are we doing? This is a fantastic day today. We're going to be talking about the Jaeger Internet Training System. Powerful system. We talk about tapes, books, functions, and the power of how put together a very large distribution network. And I'm excited about today. Hope you guys are. And get your notepads out, your Franklins out, and we're going to be right back. Great stuff. I mean, we're going to have a great time today because I want to share with you a couple of things that happened to me as I began to build the business. When I first got the phone call to see this thing, you guys get the phone call, right? You got to see this thing. He phones me up and he says, Case, you got to take a look at this thing. Now, I got to tell you a bit of background on me because it's going to be very pertinent to what we discussed today about how to use the system. I was 25 years old. In fact, I was just shy of my 25th birthday. I was a long-haired mustache, shaved every 4 days. I mean, I had a white denim shirt on, gray leather zipper tie. I had polyester slacks on, white mesh shoes, no socks. I was good looking. And so I get this phone call from my best man at my wedding. He says, you gotta see this thing. I said, what is it? He goes, I don't know. I said, I'm thinking the word guinea pigs appeared across my forehead, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what are we gonna do? So I show up at this meeting, I sit down, I see the whole program, etc. My friend decided not to get involved in the program. I got sponsored by his sponsor, which is a gentleman today, total stranger today, my best friend, Dr. George Berniowski. And I'm excited to share a little of things that happened with us. You see, when I first got in the program, George said to me, he said, Casey, he says, you don't know what you don't know. He says, that's why you don't have. He says, because if you knew what you knew, you'd have. He says, because to know and not to do, not to know. You're confused too, good. And I remember when I first got that information, I was like looking at it, I'm like, I've never heard anything like this before. And he says, Casey, he says, the difference between where you are and where you want to be is information. And he says, my goal is to get that information into your hands so that you can make some decisions with your life. And that's what we started with. He said, actually, I got to tell you a funny side of it is he took me over to the mirror when we first got started. He says, what do you see in the mirror? I said, well, I see me. He says, well, that's half the problem. Then he said, it's a rough start. And then he says, God gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth. He says, you probably want to use them like that. And that's actually what happened. He began to fill me up with information. He started putting me into a position where I could accept the information that was available. And of course, today, what the training system has got to offer is what you don't know about what you don't know. And of course, as we know today, as we share the marketing idea all over the place, that our biggest problem is just getting the information across. On DBR 812, Paul Zane Pilzer says that today we're not so much sellers as we are educators. And isn't that so true? And I love that tape because that really spelled it out for me. And today what I want to try and do is push you in the direction of how the system was used. When I got in the program, as I said, I was 25 years old. My wife was 22. And we had got in. I had just 2.5 years at college, which basically I did not finish my degree. It was involved in radio, television, of all things. And I came out and started working hard. And of course, I knew how to work hard. I just didn't know how to work smart. So what this system did was allowed me to start working smarter, and that's where we're going to kind of move. George sat me down one day. He said, Casey, he says, I could sit and try and tell you everything I know about the business. He says, but I'm a direct distributor. He says, that would be silly. He said, because it would probably best, instead of listening to thousandaires, he said, it'd be probably better to listen to millionaires. And that makes sense, right? And he says, you don't want to be direct. He says, you want to be a diamond. And he says, my hope, my wish, my goal is that I can keep pushing you in a direction that you can take the knowledge that you need. Now, here's what he explained to me. He said, Casey, he says, we have a graph. He says, or the way he explained it was, he says, we have a system of explaining why and how people get into the business. Now, I just want to share this with you a little bit. He drew this up and he drew a line across. He says, this represents the socio-economic scale of life. He says, let's take, if this represented 100% of the people, he says, what you've got at one end is what he says we'll call the upper scale. And he says that's a 5% group who right now in their certain situations are probably not going to look at the opportunity for a little while until it becomes more mainstream, more upfront, etc. There's also a group of people down at the other end of the socioeconomic scale that are probably not going to get involved because of circumstances and situations in their lives, etc. He says, so I believe that leaves about 90% of the population. So he said to me, he says, Casey, he says, where do you think you fit on this graph? He says, assuming that you have got 90% of the population to sponsor. And I remember looking at the graph thinking, well, geez, I don't know. And I thought, personally, I thought I would relate to a big chunk. Now picture this, 25 years old, I've worked in a bar for 9 years. I knew all the four-letter words very, very well. In fact, what happened is that I think I became a part of that environment and really didn't know how to break out of it. Yet inside I had the hunger to get out of it. Does it make sense? Because today, you don't necessarily have to be sharp, you have to be hungry. And this is what he was saying to me. He says, Casey, I'll agree to work with you if you keep coming and taking the information. And that's what he said. He says, how much do you think you relate to in the graph? And I said, I don't know. And he said, let me draw a line for you. And he put it up just about that. He says, that represents somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10%. He says, how many people here have ever met somebody and you clicked with them? You ever remember, you're like, those are people that fall into, I guess, your space or your place on the relatability curve. What he said our system is designed to do, Casey, is to relate people from every walk of life. He says literally, and he used the term ditch diggers to doctors, every walk of life. He said, Casey, he says, I want to teach you how to become relatable to everybody. And that's where the system began. And of course, what I want to share with you is what we'll call a 3 numbers theory. A 3 numbers theory, because there is a way to keep score in the Amway business, in the networking business. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to keep score as we kind of tie together these 3 numbers theory. And what I'd like to do right now is I'm just going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back to those 3 numbers. We'll teach you how to apply that scorekeeping technique so we can make your business very effective. So we'll be right back.
Had a nice day, dear.
You could say that. In fact, you could be looking at the next divisional branch manager.
Oh, that's nice, dear.
Paul Stevens reckons I've got a very bright future with the company.
You needn't worry about minor mishaps around the home. With LOC from Amway, you can remove virtually any
My
stain.
reputation for care and attention. The airport, a bit of promotion in the next few months. Including the company car as well.
That's nice, dear.
LOC, an incredibly versatile and effective all-purpose cleaner, concentrated and economical, powerful but gentle, and kind to the environment, used in the most spotless homes around the world.
You know, we're going to talk about the power of this tape system. I am excited about it because what we're going to do is we're going to actually draw a numbers theory up so that you can actually put this system into place. Now, before I put this up, and as you probably have heard from all your upline and that, please check with your upline on everything I say. Remember that I am not your upline. I'm just sharing with you some ideas that I've come across that have made a big difference in our business, and I just want to help you understand some of maybe the philosophy in behind the tapes. Let's talk first about the 3 numbers theory. Now, I want to reference the tape that I got this from. It was actually Purpose of a Leader tape by Tim Foley. And the tape, that's where I got the original numbers theory from, and I want to share that with you before we get started. The first number that we want to talk to you about is this. The number 1 number is the number of tapes you personally listen to. Now, everybody here has heard a lot of tapes. Is that right? Everybody here has heard a lot of tapes. What I want to share with you is this. The power of the tapes is simply this. There's an information in the tapes that can change your life. Remember, you don't know what you don't know. right? That's why you don't have. My goal is to get so many tapes into your hand so you can figure out what you don't know. Now, when I first saw the system, my sponsor brought me over to the trunk of his car, opened up his trunk and said, listen, he says, we've got some tapes here, and he handed me what I'll call the first night tapes, because everybody has different tapes in the training system. I'm going to just kind of refer generically to a group of tapes that have been put together just for the purpose of the video today. Now, what I want you to understand is this. There are first night tapes that make the biggest difference. That means this. Most of the first night tapes have been chosen because they're relatable. They are non-offensive. They probably have not got information on it that could be controversial. Because our goal when we first share the marketing program with people is to welcome them into the fold, right? For the most part, most people don't like to be sold. Have you ever seen this before? So most people kind of want to be welcomed in a little bit under a more gentler hand. What I like about the tapes is that they're the best closers I've ever seen. They're also the best educators, right? I can sit and talk at somebody and tell them this and tell them that, and they'll sit there going, yeah, I'm not hearing a word you're saying. And I'll tell you, frustrating. You think that they've actually heard you. And you'll talk about different things that you believe. One of the things that I've discovered is this. Most people have a lot of problems working with individuals because they're spending so much time trying to judge the person talking to them. Does it make sense? Now here's what I found out. My sponsor said to me, he said, Casey, he says, when you're first getting started as a young 25-year-old kid, he says, you're probably best to use your upline's credibility. So for me, when I started showing the marketing plan, you know what I used to say? Dr. George said this, Dr. George said that, Dr. George said this, Dr. George said that. All third-party communication. I'm a diamond direct distributor today. We've broken diamonds. We've got emeralds down the line. I mean, things, we've got to happen in business. Do you know what I showed the plan last night? Guess what? Dr. George said this, Dr. George said that, Dr. George said this. Why? Because I never want to have the system filtered through me. I want to make somebody who's listening to the marketing plan for the first time feel comfortable enough to know that if they don't relate to my personality, right, that there's another source they can go to. And of course, if I send them home with the right tapes that are comfortable, relatable, etc., what's going to happen? They're going to listen to those tapes and say, you know, there's something here, and probably dig deeper. And so let's talk about this. When we talk about the power of the system, you got to know, first of all, what the first tapes to use are. You got to discover them. Question. Guys, think about it. When was the last time, especially Jim as an Emerald, when was the last time you listened to the first night tapes you've handed out? Last time. First night tape.
Probably a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago. Fantastic. Now, here's one of the things I've discovered with some of my directs down the road is that they get so used to handing out the same tapes every night that they forget what they're handing out, right? A new person listens to them and they come off with a little bit of an attitude or an edge, and what happens, right? You as the leader kind of going to them, you're expecting them all to be hyped up, and they missed it. Do you know what I mean? And so what I would encourage you to do is, if I could tell you anything, is that if you're going to be a big leader in this business, constantly go back to the first night tapes. Constantly fill your mind up with the basics. Constantly put yourself in the shoes of new people, because let's face it, guys, the heartbeat of our organization, of the internet system, is new people. If you can't relate to new people, your business isn't going to grow. It's that simple. Does that make sense? And so what I share with you today is this, is that you got to get into the tapes. First number of tapes that you listen to. Number of tapes that you listen to. You are only as good as the information that you've listened to. Does it make sense? Now, here's what Dr. George explained to me. He said, Casey, he says, you're going to move in the direction of your most predominant thought. Everybody has negative in their life. Everybody has childhood and an upbringing and this and that. We all have negative. I was explained to me this way. Negative is constant in our lives. What we need to do is we need to constantly put new ideas, new information, constantly inundate ourselves with the right information to overcome the negative. It's kind of like running up a down escalator, right? The minute you stop, what happens? Right? You got drawn back. And so why I talk to people is that the number of tapes you listen to is going to constantly overcome all the negative. How many people here have got a negative friend, a negative relative? Somebody's kind of said, not real happy with the business, right? Didn't understand it, etc. That's fine. What we're not trying to do is get everybody in. All we want to do is be messengers of a system that's changing people's lives. That's what we're going to do. So now where do we go from here? The number of tapes you listen to will give you information. I want to give you a formula at this point, and then I'm going to walk through the next parts of the system. Here's where the formula kicks in. Tapes contain information. I'm just going to put info. Information listened to repeatedly, many times, let's put times here, listened to many times becomes knowledge. Knowledge breeds, because knowledge, you begin to be inside of it, knowledge breeds confidence. Confidence then generates activity. Anybody here know that you know about certain subjects in your life? Right? Confidence breeds activity. Activity, because even if you don't know what you're doing, you can sometimes produce results. Anybody ever seen a new person? Doesn't have a clue what they're doing, right? But they're out there producing results. You're like, you know, where do these guys come from? Results are important, but better, the outcome of results are habits, right? Habits are what Dexter says are the secret of wealth. Okay, now let me share this with you. Tapes have information. Information listened to many times creates knowledge. Knowledge then breeds confidence. Confidence produces the activity. Activity, of course, creates the results. It's not necessarily the results we're looking for. We're looking for the habits to create, here's the last part, long-term success. Okay, people ask me, they say, Casey, you can stand up and talk about this business till the cows come home. I mean, how many people here you could just sit and blah, blah, blah. How many new people, after about 3 weeks, they listen to tapes and all of a sudden they're a broken record? They blow their family out, you know, it's just, they're running around just annoying people. And let me tell you what I think, you know. Never talked before, now all of a sudden they're a broken record, you know. What happens is the knowledge gets into their heart. And here's what I found out was this, is that I knew that if I could get enough information, if I could know in my heart of hearts that I knew that I knew that I knew, then what happened is I could get the confidence to get out there and do this. So here's where this whole pattern kicks in. The number of tapes you listen to is important, but the number of times you re-listen to those tapes is the second part. See, number of tapes you listen to and re-listen to. You see, a lot of times, and here, I got to share this with you. How many times do you ever give a tape to a stripper and they go, yeah, good tape. Yeah, good tape. You know, and you listen to the tape and you went, wow, I mean, this is deep. I mean, this is heavy, you know? And you're like, didn't you love it? And their reaction is like, yeah, it was fine. And you're like, goodness gracious, what do we do with these people? What you need to understand is that everybody is at a different place, different space, different thing in time. And so what you've got to realize is that if there was a way to create some sort of re-listening program, one of the things I tell people is I say, don't listen to a tape once, twice. I mean, make it a goal, 4, 5, 6, 7, even 10 times. You know, actually, let me use a quick analogy here to give you what I believe is probably one of the most important aspects. How many people who know martial arts, right? A black belt. Anybody here have a black belt? Do you have a black belt? Is that right? Fantastic. Do you know the term black belt is actually a master of basics, right? Most people don't know that. Black belt is a master of basics. Now, how many guys you've had come into the dojo? They walk in and they throw 3 or 4 punches like, okay, I'm ready, you know, right? And what happens is the instructor says, okay, stand back, punch forward, right? Stand back, punch forward, right? And they're like, yeah, I've done this 10 times now. Yeah. Stand back, stand forward. And you're like, the new person is saying, okay, well, show me how to kill somebody. They want to skip past all the learning curve. They just want to get to the results, right? The problem is that in order to throw a punch, when you first throw the first punch, it's kind of like one of these, kind of like one of these ones. But later on, see, here's what I had explained to me. A punch is just a punch to the average person, right? But to a black belt who's thrown 1,000 punches, a punch is more than a punch. It becomes a science. It becomes a thinking, a thought pattern, a process. It's something that becomes inside of you. Eventually, a black belt has thrown so many punches that he doesn't even think about the turn, the arch, the hit 3 inches past the mark, and all that kind of stuff. And then he moves from a punch is just a punch to a punch is more than a punch to a punch is just a punch. Make sense? Think about that. Now apply it to our system. Tapes are just tapes. How many times have we listened to tapes and just handed them out and they were just this and that? Then all of a sudden, you begin to re-listen to a couple of your favorite tapes. And you're like under the 10th time you listen to the tape and all of a sudden it's like, eureka. You ever have one of these? Boom. Hey, I don't, praise the, I mean, it's one of these, praise the Lord, boy. You get all kind of, it's like, wow, the secret kind of revealed itself to you. Why? Because you were ready to hear it. Make sense? And that's the same as in our system here, is that information listened to many, many times becomes knowledge. I don't have to go look at my notes. Why? Because I am the notes. I don't have, when I listen to tapes, I've listened to so many tapes, I am a tape. Right? Today, what I want to share with you is this. There's a secret here, which is don't just listen to the information lightly. Make a concerted effort to sit down and know what's in behind the tapes, what they're trying to share with you. That knowledge will breed confidence in you. How many people here have people that are more than capable of building this business, yet for some unknown reason can't get out there and do this thing? And it's so frustrating, and you're trying to counsel them, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to fix this. I know their problem, all that. And the problem is they don't have confidence. They're still at a tape is just a tape. They haven't got past a tape is more than a tape. To me, it was my lifeline. I remember when my sponsor started talking to me. He says, Casey, he says, I don't mean to be rude. He says, Casey, I don't want to talk to you too much. I thought, oh, great. No one else does either. Nobody wants to get in. My sponsor doesn't want to talk to me. And he says, no. He says, in a nice way, he says, here's what the situation is. He says, the more I talk to you, the more you think I'm the reference source. The more you have to keep coming to me for all the answers. And he says, that's not right. Here's a tip. Every time you answer a question and you don't reference the source that you got the information from, you steal 50% of the effectiveness of the answer. Because when you're long gone in your car at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, where are they going to turn? Where are they going to turn for the information? Right? And you walked away going, I told them. They know. ever had that? They know. And you walk away and so confident. Next week, what are they back to? The same old stuff. And you can't figure it out. You know what I found out a long time ago was this. The number of tapes I listened to and re-listened to generated that confidence inside of me. That I knew I could handle anybody. That what we did for a living wasn't a good idea. That it was the best of the best of the best of the best. Right? This is not a good idea. It's the greatest physical thing I've ever seen in my life. And I had to sell myself that. From the tapes, listening and re-listening, also from books, etc., what I want you to understand is write this down. A power page needs to be generated. I want you to also just kind of footnote over the number of tapes. I want you to put the word books and books. Except it's not going to be re-listen to books. It's going to be reread the books. Because I'm going to separate off here in the other two numbers. But the number of books you read and the number of books you reread. You know what some of the biggest problem is? How many people here ever read a book the first time? It's okay. Second time, that's pretty good. Third time, you kind of, geez, I never saw that before. Fourth time, fifth time, all of a sudden, it's like, this is like awesome. I mean, I read The Magic of Thinking Big back when I got in, first time, 100 pin, right. Go through the book, it's okay, right? Second time I read it, I was probably, I guess, about a 4,000 pin-ish, kind of getting up there. I thought, man, I got to get back into this thing, right? And I remember reading through the book, and I got to chapter 2, Excuse-itis. This is everybody's problem. I mean, right? This is everybody's problem. So what happened was I started running around promoting the books, right? I was saying, you read this book yet? You got to read it, and all of a sudden I became a promoter. Do you know what I mean? And so actually, what we've got up here is this. It's the same concept. You can put the same formula. Books contain information listed, read many times, and the formula never changes. Last part, and we're gonna go to a break after I explain this part. But here's what I found out was, it was fine for me to be excited about the tapes, the books, the power of the information. It was exciting for me to know that I could develop the knowledge, and that would breed confidence to me that a 25-year-old kid could go out and develop a massive distributorship. right? But you know what the problem was? Alone, it was useless. Here was I got to tell you this story. One day I woke up in this dream. I was so excited. I just finished listening to a really kind of like the diamond cut tapes, and you know the quotes and the tapes, they kind of start milling around in your mind, and you're like, you know. And I remember the Randy Haugen, what if we could, you know, and Don Stern says that one, eagles, you can fly, and I'm like, yeah. You start going, you know, and in your mind, you're just full of life. And I remember I woke out of my sleep and I said, this is the greatest thing in the whole world. And I dreamed that I was standing on a street corner going, and this one for you, and 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 for you. And I didn't even care how much it cost. I didn't care how much the books cost. I just wanted people to know what I knew, the way I felt in my heart about this business, about my friends, about the family, about the whole picture overall. And so the last part of number 1 is the number of tapes you listen, number of books you read, re-listen, reread, and the number of tapes and books you give away. I want to share that with you because this is what I believe is the secret of duplication, of information, right? Tapes are the greatest educators, they're the best closers, the best multipliers, right? Books are the same. I wish, my hope, my goal for you is that you could feel the way I feel about the tapes and book system and figure out a way to give away the most tapes, the most books you could, so that you could affect the most lives. Does that make sense? I'm excited about this number 1 theory because this makes a difference. Right here, it's not just good enough that you have the information. You've got to figure out a way to get people excited about listening to tapes and reading books. Billy Florence said one time, he says, I may not be the best plan shower. He says, I may not be the best this and that. He says, but I'm the best at getting people to listen to tapes. He says, you ever hear him say that? And I sat there one time and I thought, if Billy Florence thinks that's important, I think that's important, right? And that made sense. You know, when I heard that, it was like, yes, I'm gonna start to master that. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could tell you anything, learn to master how to get people excited about listening and reading to information they don't know anything about. It'll breed confidence in them, it'll produce activities, you'll get results, and of course to develop the habits for long-term success, because we're going to be in this business for a bit. So, we're going to come back, we're going to cover point number 2. I'm excited for you guys, hope you're having fun. Yeah. Going great. Okay, we'll be right back.
This evening's performance of Laundry's Symphony of Stains, with both major and minor removements, is conducted by Fabrico Wostakovich. Let us now join the performance. The Amway Laundry Care System for the Symphony of Stains in your life.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really glad we took that break, and I had some of you guys ask me some of those questions about the power and the use of the tape system. Actually, what I'd like to do right now, and I do want to get on to point number 2, but I really appreciate the questions about, hey, Case, that's all great, that now all makes sense to us, but how do we use the tools to make a difference to new people? Because we now know how to do it with distributors. How do you make a difference with new people? And that's something I'd really like to share with you, because this is also, I think, probably one of the most important parts of getting your network really moving. I know for you guys, you're at the 1,000-pin level. You're just kind of getting that sucker kind of warmed up, and you're trying to make it happen, that kind of thing. What I would tell you is this, is that you're going to have to make your focus new people, the heartbeat of the business, new people. So I remember when my sponsor first sat me down, I'm just going to use a reference source. This is a list that's put together. All these tapes are available through the TL220, of course, which is the internet tape list, etc. I'm just going to give some references and explain to you what I discovered with the tapes exactly. One of the first tapes that we hand out, in fact, we hand out a selection of 7 different tapes that are available in the system. And I'll quote them because I think there's generic enough that for all of us to do that. But the first tape that we hand out, and we've just had a fantastic amount of success with, is the Ron and Toby Hale tape. In fact, Don Wilson said on Even a Blind Dog Can Go Direct tape, he said that the Ron and Toby Hale tape, Air Force Recruiter to People Builder, DY60, was probably one of the top sponsoring tapes in the history of the business. And one of the reasons why I want to reference that tape is, remember we talked about the socioeconomic scales where some people were down at one end, and then there were people up at the other end of the scale, and of course there were the people in the middle. I want to use the Ron and Toby Hale tape to just give you a brief example. Remember when Ron and Toby first got in the business, they were backwood country, Tennessee, no coat, I mean, real heart, family, kind of nitty-gritty tape, And I remember listening to that tape thinking, man, these people are so real, so honest. They couldn't make up a story like that because it was so much themselves. And that tape relates to where? On what end of the scale? Down the lower end of the social economic scale. Now let's take a tape on the exact opposite stream. How about Paul Pilser's tape, right? Economic Paradigms, DBR 812. If you're trying to get executives in, you're an engineer, is that right? Like an engineer is going to sit there and get a slide ruler out and check this thing out, and you know what? We have to have tapes that make a difference to the engineers as well as the homemakers because they're from 2 different angles of the business. And of course, that tape, Economic Paradigms, relates at the other end of the scale. Let's talk about a tape that falls right up the center. I like the tape George and Ruth Halsey, This is Diamond, DBR 408. Fantastic to tape. It talks about what happened when they first got in the business. You know what's important to a new person? What's going to happen to me when I first get in the business, right? He tells a story about what happened when his sponsor came over and they had his first meeting and they didn't get in and they didn't get in, and all of a sudden what happened? Boom, all his business. And he phoned up his sponsor. He says, I got 20 people. And he says, what do you want me to do next? The sponsor says, have another meeting. It was fun. It was relatable. And of course, new people are thinking, geez, what's going to happen to me when I get in, right? Imagine if they started to pick up the thoughts, have another meeting. Have another meeting. Remember, you've got to help program new people to know what direction they got to go to. So the final, let me give you some other examples. You know what? Let's go back to someone who's executive type. Who's the accountant? You're the accountant, right? You've got a fantastic background. You know what she's into? Analyze it personally, right? You know the tape by Frank Mazzio and Al LeBlanc? Fantastic tape. Analyzing this business professionally, personally, sitting down and saying, what is this all about? Another great tape. Anybody here into sports, right? Tim Foley's tape. Our Story. Powerful. Powerful information. Great story. If you ever run across a negative spouse, right? Use that tape. That really helps. And of course, he talks about all the different things that have happened to him. He's also a superstar. He's a public figure. He's somebody who's made a difference outside of our business, outside of networking, who has a stamp of credibility put on him by outside people. Powerful tape. I want to also give you another reference tape. I think it's fantastic tape. How many people have had some questions about Amway? Right? Ever had any questions about Amway? Oh my. One of the things that I've discovered, I used to sit there and try and battle back and forth and try and tell them this and tell them that, and Amway's diversified in all these countries around the world and all this kind of stuff. And I finally resolved to the fact that, you know what? I can try and tell them all I want, but there's nobody better than a guy who's second generation Crown who got into the Amway business when he was 11 years old and his father got in. And he's Dexter Yeager's upline. Tape is called New Beginnings. Covers everything from 1959 to 1992 about everything about why and how Amway changed. I think the best line in the whole tape is he says Amway was, their slogan was home care know-how at your doorstep. And people want to know, why has Amway got a door-to-door image? It's right there on the tape. And now you say, you know what? We're involved in interactive distribution. We're involved in networking. It's a whole new concept. People get to go home and they get to take hold of the information themselves. I mean, there are thousands of tapes that I recommend to you. Professionals. How many professionals? We're trying to get professionals in today, right? Professionals at Hilton Head. Fantastic tape, DBR 672. Unbelievable tape. I just recommend all these different tapes. Use them at your discretion. You know what the point of that is? Remember, we're going to try and relate to the most people. Remember, you and I are the messengers. We're not going to try and get people in. All we're going to do is invite them in to take a look at the information. Why do we show the plan in third party? Because we don't want them to look at us. We want them to look where? At the board, at the opportunity, at the system, as you said. That's what we want them to do. We want them to come meet our upline. Right? We want them to if you don't like me, no problem. Here. You'll like somebody else, really, you know, and I'll grow on you later. I mean, it's just, you know, you'll get used to me later, you know. That's one of the things that I got. I just, we have a system. I mean, everybody here's got your own tape list. Please get your upline. Say, explain to me the philosophy. Explain to me the power of each tape. How do I use it in my business, in my system? How do I put it together? I mean, we've got the best route. I mean, how many people, oh, Harry? Right? I mean, you know, Forks in the Road, Louis Corilla tape. I love Ron and Melanie Rummel, right? We went through some struggles. Then came the second month. My wife and I, it's kind of the same tape. But, you know, Keep the Ego Free, Jim Martin, you know, powerful tape. And, I mean, Jerry Meadows, Heroes. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But you know what it is? There's some powerful rally and story tapes. I want to just give you a quick note about that. If you're listening to twice as many how-to tapes as Y2 tapes, you may be missing it. Let me explain something to you. If you're listening to too many how-to tapes, you may be missing the fact that you don't have a dream, right? The business is built on having a dream. It's an inspiration. It's something that you feel inside. The how-to is show the plan, give away tapes, get them to the next rally. I mean, the how-to is just do lots more of that, right? The why-to is more important than the how-to. So check yourself on the number of how-to, why-to tapes you're listening to. My sponsor told me it was a 2-to-1 ratio. If you listen to two why-to or inspirational tapes, rally tapes, and 1 seminar tape, he says you build yourself a very balanced business. And he said, because you know what? If you can inspire people, if you can excite people, he says you're going to basically make a bigger difference and you're going to impact more people. And so as I wrap that up, I also want to give you a reference point in the bottom, which is books. Right? The books to use today, I can't even endorse the business handbook enough to you, BK247. I mean, that book is, I mean, what Doyle and Doyle did that with that book and Dexter, I mean, that is just pure gold. I mean, pure gold. Everybody has a manual for work, or maybe you have a manual for some sort of business, or maybe some sort of profession that you're in. We have a manual too, right? It's called the Business Handbook, and it is powerful. There's gold, there's nuggets, gold nuggets in that book. I mean, it's just awesome. Other books I recommend to you, Who Stole the American Dream? Powerful book, right? Talks about pyramids, talks about networking in the future, uses references. I mean, it's an exciting book. But don't forget The Magic of Thinking Big. When was the last time you guys read that book? When was the last time, right? Anybody here guilty of not reading the book in the last year, right? I can say that I have even been guilty of that once in a while. What I want you to understand is that if you reread the books, it becomes power, it becomes confidence, it becomes knowledge. It's exciting. I just want to, I mean, I could go on and on and on. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Don't let anyone steal your dream. Dexter Yeager. I mean, Success the Glenn Bland Method. Attitude, your most priceless possession. I mean, on and on. I'm not going to go through them all, but I do want you to know one thing, right? If you keep giving reference to the source, that will double up your effectiveness. Remember, if you keep giving away the tapes, giving away the books, and figuring out a way to get people to listen to them, you're gonna make a difference. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, I'm excited about sharing. Did that make a difference? Help to bet? Okay, that's great. Let me just put that down for a second, on to point number 2. What I want you to know is that point number 2 in the scorekeeping system that we're gonna talk about here is this. Point number 2 is the number of functions that you attend. How many people here have ever heard guilty by association? Anyone ever heard that? How many have ever heard it's not what you know, it's who you know? I'll tell you something. Success through osmosis has got to be one of the most misunderstood secrets of success. Yet, funny enough, how many people have ever told their kids, don't hang around with the bad kids, right? If you want to get a cold, get around someone who's got a cold, right? If you want to become wealthy, get around wealthy people, right? You know what my sponsor used to say to me? He says, Casey, he says, how do you cross a minefield? I said, send your friends. That's not the right answer, but it was a good answer back then. He said to me, he said, Casey, he says, how you cross a minefield is you find somebody who's crossed to the other side. He says, you find where they're at, and you basically look down at their footsteps, and you figure out a way to put your foot into their footsteps and walk across a minefield. You know what today most people are trying to do? They get halfway, they're trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's like, let me try something else. And off they go, and boom, failure, doom. Why? Our system today is methodical. If you continue to get around all your upline, get around the functions, get around the people, get around like-minded people, you can't help but win through association. I can't even begin to encourage it. Let me put it to you this way. My sponsor said, Casey, he says, you want to be successful in this business? I said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to do this business. He says, I'll give you one piece of advice. Attend all upline functions. He says, they don't put those functions on for the good of their health. I mean, anybody hear that, right? They put those functions on. They're already diamonds. They already have the financial success. They put it on so that you and I can benefit from the association. We can benefit from getting around them and figuring out maybe some of where our flaws are and some of the things we need to correct. You know, that's what association is. It's getting around people who are going in life where you want to go. Right? Anyone here want to be a diamond, right? Yes, sir. And I'm excited about that. Now, let's tie this picture together with the second part. The number of functions you attend, critical, agreed? But we've now agreed that we're all going to attend functions, right? Right. Now, what's the problem? Right? We got to get other people to go to them, because we can listen to all the tapes, get all the listen to the tapes, etc. Problem is, we got to figure out how to get people to the function. Give away the opportunity for other people to attend. So it's the number of people you have attend functions. I remember, there's a lot of tapes to reference numbers, etc. I'm just going to tell you what I've kind of heard down the pipeline over the years is that 100 people attending a seminar and rally, you will not be able to help it. You will be 7,500 PV. Does anyone here want to be a direct? You guys are 1,000, 1,500. You're going, I'd like to be a direct. Don't worry about being 7,500 PV product-wise. Right? Everybody here has 7,500 PV already. Did you guys know that? Did you know that? Personal vision, right? 7,500, personal vision, right? You always see yourself as a direct. Your goal is, how do I, with what I've got, give away enough tapes, enough books, and encourage people enough to come and attend the functions. You get me 100 people at a function, and you'll have 7,500 PV whether you like it or not. Does that make sense? Right? That's a number that I've built my business by. It's a number I continue to build my business by. In fact, if you check in the back of the pocket calendar, what's it say on how to make direct? Number of people attending functions. Sit down, study that pocket calendar, and get with your upline. Say, guys, what do you think the number is for me to get to the direct level? I've found it be consistently 100 people, and I'm excited about that. You know what? If I could encourage you to do anything, is that if you could get the tapes and books into the hands of the people, you won't even have to promote functions to them. Why? Because the tapes are already doing it, right? It's half the battle, isn't it? And so I'm excited about sharing that with you. Number one, the number of tapes you listen to, the number of books you read. Re-listen, reread. Number of tapes you give away. This brings to the second part, which is you'll attend all functions. Why? Because it's to help you reinforce all the values, all the principles, all the knowledge, right? It's help overcome that negative that's built constantly in your personality, and through association, you begin to get walking up that escalator a lot easier, right? Right? And here's what happens. The more people that you come and bring to a function, and they come on their own, how many people do you motivate when you come to a function, and you bring them to a function? The answer is all of them. Right? How much motivation did you have to do? Almost nothing, right? This business, you don't have to just work hard. You can work smart. Functions are critical. What I'd like to do is, I'm excited about coming back to the third point and tying it up in a big bow so you guys can feel the power of the system. I'm going to tie it together, and we're going to have a great time. So guys, we'll be right back, and have yourselves you guys having a good time?
Yes.
Great stuff. We'll be right back.
Ever wonder just how many products Amway sells? And what if someone came and took away all those Amway products? What if Amway didn't sell so many great products? You're in luck. We do. Amway, over 5,000 products backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. And you thought you knew us.
Well, we're excited. We're back. We're on the final point, point number 3. We're going to talk about it. We're going to tie it up in a big picture as we cover the 3 numbers theory. Number 3, in my opinion, obviously, listening to tapes, reading books, getting the energy, having the knowledge, and knowing what you need to know about putting this thing together is important. But till you go out and you make it happen, nothing's going to happen. So let's talk about number 3. Number 3 is simple. It's called STP. The number of STPs that you do will be completely related to the amount of success you have. But here's what I've discovered and some of the things that I've done with the business. I remember I used to be a circle drawn animal. I was out there showing it, oh, you're breathing good, sit down. I mean, it was like, let's get on to this. I mean, I'd show it to everybody. Of course, my background, you know, I didn't look real good. I didn't have a lot of money to buy real best clothes, so I had to show. Actually, my sponsor said to me, he said, Casey, he says, you're going to have to show a lot of plans. He says, because you're going to need the law of averages to work for you. And but I want to share this with you. My business didn't grow until I finally figured out STP and STP. Now, let me explain this to you. STP and STP means this. Kenny Stewart said a long time ago, he who shows the plan the most wins. We know that, right? Problem is this, right? If you just show the plan, but you don't bring the people into the system and get them to listen to tapes, read books, and go to functions, what's going to happen? Nothing. How many people here have sold kits to distributors, right? They're card-carrying members. They're not doing anything. I mean, it's like, oh, glory, you know, and they always seem to get in my group. Right? They were always in my group, and I couldn't figure it out. I knew how to get people to buy a kit from me. You know what I believe today? I believe that we're not in the kit-selling business. I believe that we're in the education business, that if we can bring people into our fold as a part of the system, welcome to the trough. If you want to make $200 a month and your commitment's at this level, fantastic. If you want to make $2,000 a month, you know, your commitment's at this level, great, fantastic. If your commitment's like me, it was like 20,000, I mean, like 20,000 a month, be okay, you know, right? That's for the crazies over here at this end. What that meant was this, is that everybody's commitment level to get involved in the training process, see, here's the point. Show the plan and start the training process. Catch it? That was what, I couldn't pick it up. I remember STP, I mean, stuff the pocket, sell the product, sponsor the people, you know, all these terminologies. But the bottom line for long-term success is how many people did you get to listen to tapes, read books, and come to the functions? That's when I personally started to see the growth. Now, of course, as you know, I did not have a lot of personal credibility. I had a lot of problems getting people to even really sometimes sit down and look at the plan. But here's what George explained to me. Picture this for a second. How many people have seen a deck of cards? Ever played solitaire before? Picture this. Take 52 cards, lay them out on the table, right? 52 cards, like a deck of cards. Take this and flip them, all the cards down. And I say to you, listen, in every deck of cards, there's what? There's 4 aces, 4 kings, 4 queens, 4 jacks, and there's also 2 jokers. Anybody know about these jokers? Here's what I've discovered. You go through your names list, sit down, go through 52 cards. If I told you you'd be an Emerald Direct distributor in the Amway business, if you could find the 4 aces, how fast would you flip over those cards? Right? How fast did you flip over those cards? Right? Our problem is we spend so much time prejudging everybody, right? What we're not in the business of is getting people into this business. What we're doing is we're trying to invite them in. We're servants of the system. We just want people to feel the way we feel about the tapes, the way we feel about the books, about the relationships we have with the people at the functions, the growth. I mean, it's an exciting pattern of success. What I wish I could share with you is the fact that showing the plan is important, but the process, the starting of the Jaeger Internet training process is the secret of how you'll get your business, your numbers to explode. Right? Now, I remember one time I heard on the tape, Driving With, Randy Haugen said to Dexter Jaeger, how do you work 30 legs? Because Dexter said to him, you know, Randy, you could work 30 legs. And Randy went, 30 legs? I'm going to work 30 legs? And Dexter says, you don't understand the system. And, of course, today Randy understands the system. But here's the point. I remember being a new distributor watching going, what is the system? And when it finally clicked was, I didn't have to sit and motivate everybody. My job, my job was to be excited, believable, bring them in to have people feed at the trough of success. Some people were going to get in and become fanatics. Some people were going to get in and buy the product and maybe show up to a couple of meetings. Make sense? Invite people in at different levels of the system. Is it possible you could work 30 legs if you had to start people on tapes, books, and functions? Would that take much of our time? Not really, would it? We could actually work smart as well as hard. In fact, I found out we just broke our 7th leg. We're excited about it. Why? I actually didn't spend very much time in that group because I was building the 6 to go diamond. You know what happened was, group, can you believe it? They did it without me. The nerve. I mean, I'm excited about that. How many people here wouldn't mind if they had some legs just get up and do it on their own? That'd be neat. That's the power of the system. You know what I believe today? I believe that if we can continue to teach, reinforce this philosophy, this training system, the number of tapes, the number of books, the number of functions, and keep pushing people into the system, into the power of this system, people will be able to build a business faster. They'll be able to build it twice as big. They'll be able to take away the time it takes to get people up to speed because they'll be able to learn at their own personal pace. Does it make sense? Wouldn't it be nice if people actually got in? How many people here have sometimes you've sponsored people and you're trying to help them and they're just not ready? You know, a long time ago, my sponsor said, Casey, it's timing. You just got to let people come at their own speed. Today, one of my favorite sayings in the whole business is let the system help people with their relationship struggles. Let the system help them learn more about their children. Let the system help people discover more about their spiritual life. Let the system help people learn more about finances. Let the system. You know what it is? I find people go direct in the business and they want to stop teaching the basics and they want to counsel. Let me tell you what I know, right? If you're a direct distributor and you're silver, right? You want to go pearl, you want to go emerald, you want to go diamond, go back to what got you to direct. Go back to the basics. Tapes, books, functions. Show the plan, start the process. That's what this whole business is about. It's not getting people to do it because you told them to. It's inviting people in, showing the dream, talking to them about having in life, what they can have, feeling about what they can feel, right? Talking to them about becoming better in all the areas that they're not good at, right? And inviting them to feel in their heart the way you and I feel, the inspiration, the excitement, the power, the showing the plan, the dream. I mean, man, how many people got people in their group that just keep coming to the functions and listen to tapes anyways, right? Just because of the personal growth. You know, I tell people is that the system is the secret. I'm just a servant today of the system. I'm excited to be able to share with you some of the things that I've discovered about this business. You know what the truth is? The truth is I knew nothing. I stole everything. Isn't it great? Think about it. You guys can build this business. You can go direct, pearl, emerald, diamond. You guys can do it. God bless you, and let's make it happen. Thanks.
No matter where in the world you go, you'll find one name that sets the standard. SA8. SA8 is versatile and effective, whitening a world of fabrics, brightening a rainbow of colors. SA8. In any language. A continually improved formula for getting clothes brighter and whiter, power-packed with stain fighters. Yet it's concentrated for cleaning power and value. Continually tested, proven effective, economical, dependable. SA8 spells quality and value everywhere around the world.
While the techniques and approaches suggested have worked for others, no one can guarantee that these techniques and approaches will work for you. We hope, however, that the ideas presented here will assist you in developing a strong and profitable business. This is a copyrighted program of Internet Services Corporation. Unauthorized reproduction of this tape is prohibited. Purchase of this tape is optional.